Welcome back. Now, it's often said that the youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and the youth of every race and dimension have always stood center stage in socio-economic development of nations across the globe. They represent a measure of success or failure for every state or region based on what government do with them. Issues of unemployment, landlessness, inaccessibility to education are but some just of a few hurdles that are facing the youth. And the AU this year celebrated the theme that is harnessing the demographic dividend through investments in youth. To speak to us on the progress made pertaining to youth, I'm joined by Daisry Mathias, who is a presidential advisor on youth matters and enterprise development. Good morning, Daisry.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Now, let's get into it. In terms of the strides and successes, how would you describe that is the year 2017 in driving youth and enterprise development in Namibia?
Thank you. I think foremost I should draw a distinction between youth matters and enterprise development. Although the two are complementary, they do have different progress indicators. 2017 was a difficult year because of the carried over contractions and subdued economic growth that started in 2016. And this had an impact on government's ability to optimally implement programs that are developmental and focused on youth and enterprise development. But notwithstanding that, by the end of 2017, the midterm implementation progress review reported that progress is being recorded, albeit below the set targets. More generally, youth matters recorded better progress in 2017 than enterprise development, and that is because of government's priority and sustained investments in the social sectors of education and health. On the enterprise development front, we saw notable policy progress with the operationalization of the Public Procurement Act, with the adoption and launching of the MSME policy, as well as concluded advanced consultations towards the Equitable Economic Empowerment Framework. And all of these are important policies because they contain preferential empowerment clauses for local young SMEs.
Okay, now what would you say are some of the identified pressing issues as it relates to youth development?
Being a young person myself and being not only a Namibian but an African, I cannot separate myself from the contemporary challenges and realities that are limiting so many young people in our society. Perhaps the spectrum and not all at the same time, but certainly I haven't been spared. And some of the key issues in my day-to-day dealings that are keeping me up at night are the high number of out-of-school youth, as well as the rising youth unemployment rate, which really is imperative that it is addressed, because in the long term, it can exacerbate the inequalities in our society. It's further heightened by the limited intake capacity of education institutions. Another matter that is a challenge is the ability to start up and to enterprise sustainably in terms of the conduciveness of the environment. We are dealing with young people who are coming from a history of systemic exclusion of their parents, who could not bequeath much to them, and this wealth gap has made it difficult for them to possess assets that they can leverage in the economy. So collateralized lending is a problem. We have challenges with access to business advisory services and information, but just general meaningful participation, management of the economy of young people, and also ownership of productive assets in the economy. All of these factors will translate into distressed livelihood, and those manifest as the psychosocial challenges that we have. We have very high rates of abuse, substance, speed, gender-based violence. We have got social reproductive health issues among young people, high teenage pregnancy rates, high abortion rates, a very tender age of sexual debut, and a high incidence or a rising incidence among HIV/AIDS adolescents. And we have got mental health challenges because of that, depression and suicide and even homelessness. So these are all symptoms of the taproot problem.
Absolutely. Now, we all know that it's been said that this is a year of reckoning, and we are all promoting value for money investments. In which ways in respect to youth and enterprise development, will government take stock and ensure accountability?
President Geingob, in his opening address to the executive at the first meeting of cabinet this year, clearly defined the concept of reckoning and what it would mean. And he also elaborated on government's approach this year under his leadership in order for us to reckon. Simply stated, leaders who are elected and entrusted into positions of responsibility are expected to account to and to report on implementation progress on national development plans back to their electorate. As part, youth and enterprise development are part and parcel of the whole of government approach, and the emphasis and the focused or intensified efforts towards effective governance and upholding the principles of transparency and accountability would then continue.
Yeah, okay. Now, on your office, Youth and Enterprise Development Advisor, what is on your agenda as well as that of other stakeholders that you are working with?
What is on my agenda?
Yeah.
The desk of the Youth Advisor and all presidential advisors is in the Office of the President, and our agenda for the year is pegged to the President's national agenda for the year. And in 2016, President Geingob launched his Accelerated Development Plan towards Prosperity, the Harambee Prosperity Plan, which is a 5-year plan. We are now in year 3 of implementing that plan, and my agenda is to maintain oversight on the implementation of those activities that speak to my focus, dimensions focus of youth and enterprise development. But there is also an opportunity for us to collaborate and work more closely with sectors to ensure that there's smooth coordination. And perhaps moving away from my national duty, just also as a community member, a matter that is quite concerning to me is the rising number of street children, and I do intend to see how I can participate in my personal capacity to alleviate this situation.
Okay. Now, talking about smooth coordination, can you enlighten us on the latest as it relates to the National Youth Policy and the action plan that should accompany it?
The National Youth Policy, the third National Youth Policy, is in the process of review. It expired in 2016, and a Policy Review Committee has since been constituted, and they have started work on drafting. That process is being spearheaded by the Line Ministry.
Yeah. Okay. And the action plan will then follow with the policy?
The action plan is a first for Namibia. It is intended to become an integrated framework so that we can coordinate activities and targets because of the cross-cutting nature of youth development.
Okay, great. Now, there was a lot of contention against the positions of presidential advisors when they were introduced, and they have received a fair share of criticism. Now, 2 years and 5 months later, what do you have to say to this?
Well, I appreciate the widespread public perceptions, and perhaps to an extent these perceptions are also misplaced, or the function of public policy advisors not fully understood in our environment. Besides, with the exception of the youth advisor, all the advisory roles are not new to the establishment, and in fact Namibia is credited among to be one of the countries that are applying governance best practice in appointing public policy advisors, and President Geingob is outstanding because of his emphasis on effective governance and also for his inclusive and empowering approach to youth development.
Okay. Now, how crucial are these positions of presidential advisors or advisors in terms of the realization of the current administrative objectives, be it in the NDP5 or the Accelerated Harambee Prosperity Plan?
The presidential advisory function is an internal-facing function, working directly to support the president. Besides the developmental focus dimensions assigned to each advisor, it's also a dynamic role where there are day-to-day influences from the president's requirements. We form part of the wider government network in the executive, and we work as a collective team supporting President Geingob to govern effectively. Ultimately, the success of this administration will be the success of a team that has been able to pull together in the same direction. Okay. All roles are significant and all role players equally significant.
Absolutely. Now, we saw the review, I think it was for the year 2016 on the Harambee Prosperity Plan in terms of the achievement of the targets. Are we expecting a midterm review soon? and an update on the attainment and the gains gained on the 167 indicators.
Yes, that review that was conducted in December 2017 was the year one report. So for the financial year 2016-2017, we are now entering the final quarter for year two, which will conclude at the end of March, and we can expect the President in his State of the Nation address to provide a comprehensive account for the implementation progress made in year two of Harambee.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any concluding remarks, Daisry?
No, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There you have it. That was Daisry Mathias. She's advising the President on youth matters and enterprise development, talking to us about youth-related matters, as well as touching base on the administrative and the objectives of the current administrative as they relate to youth matters and enterprise development. Good morning, Namibia. We'll continue after this short break. Stay tuned.